All right, back in the basement again today to talk about this, the CENTR FT2 Pro. CENTR acquired Inspire, who you guys are probably really familiar with. They have some of the most well-known functional trainers on the market. They're now rebranded as CENTR under Chris Hemsworth, who you guys may have known because you might confuse me with looking very much like him, physique-wise, of course, accent notwithstanding. But I wanted to give you some feedback on this particular unit. This is their top-of-the-line, newest functional trainer with integrated Smith machine, which you might be able to see the bar above. I'm gonna talk a lot this video. I will try to timestamp everything. I will show you B-roll on appropriate stuff when need to be, but generally want to give you my impressions on this after having owned it for just about 2 weeks. So I haven't owned it very long, but I wanted to get this out there in time for the holidays in case you're looking to splurge on something. CENTR did offer anyone who uses my link below basically a $600 discount. If you're interested, make sure you check the description box for that. Now, me personally, I train more for powerlifting. I love my barbells. I love my free weights. I don't use a functional trainer a lot. However, I know they're extremely popular, not only in just the home gym market, in the commercial space as well as other styles of training like bodybuilding, and you throw in something like a Smith machine and you have potentially a recipe for great success. And I do have some stuff already here in the basement that kind of aligns with a functional trainer, sort of. I have the Prime single stack unit, which is just a lat pull down with an adjustable cable column. However, it is just a single piece, so it's not a functional trainer having dual pulley systems. So it is a single stack as the name implies. I also have the Beyond Power Voltra, which is an electronic unit, so it's all magnetic based. You don't have dedicated single stacks. You also have the potential for failure down the road with what comes along with electronics. So this thing was really appealing for number one, having a dedicated functional trainer, which to be honest, doesn't take up a lot of space, right? I mean, you guys have seen my basement. I do have a lot of space dedicated here towards the gym. Previously in this spot, I had a little workbench and just kind of throw all my odds and ends. And this thing, despite being really big and really heavy, actually doesn't really take up too much space in the functionality department because it's not terribly wide, it's not terribly deep, and you get a lot of potential bang for your buck and all the things that you can do with it. I also like the fact that this was a little bit wider of a setup than my Voltra system. So the width on this from pulley to pulley is around 55 inches. It's about 10 inches more than what I was currently dealing with. Or if you compare that again with the Prime single stack that I mentioned earlier, that was only a single adjustable cable column. So you get a lot of potentially great things with this, with also some potential drawbacks, which I'll try to talk about. So let's first talk about some of the stuff that I really like. First of all, this has two dedicated selectorized weight units. So when you're using something like a functional trainer or you're doing things like accessories in your training, I like selectorized units because that means I don't have to actually really load the weight. I don't have to pick up plates and put them on and worry about much. I can kind of bang these out at the end of my particular session. So it just uses a really quick adjustment pin. Each stack goes up to roughly 165 pounds. I say roughly because it's not 100% accurate, but as well as in with most functional trainers, there is a 2-to-1 ratio. So if you're loading 80 pounds worth of stack, you're going to be getting 40 pounds worth of resistance, which again is typical for a functional trainer. This isn't built for big, heavy compound exercises. This is built for a whole lot of other things from chest to triceps to biceps to legs, and the integrated Smith machine actually allows you to get a true 1-to-1 ratio, which I'll show you when we get to that portion. So dual stacks of about 165 pounds. It comes with little adder-on weights too. Other models, you could actually expand the stacks. I'm not 100% sure if you can do that with this particular unit, but I would assume that you probably could. It might just impact the travel of the actual weight stack some, but I will let you know in the comment section below once I confirm with CENTR on that. Other things I really like about this is all of the pulleys that you get. So obviously with most functional trainers, the key things you're gonna look for are the side adjustable pulleys. These have 40 different positions. Right now they're at their tallest. Just for reference, I am 6'3" barefoot, 6'4" in shoes, which I'm wearing right now. So these do get pretty high depending on what you're looking to do. They adjust all the way down, the lowest point being 0.1. Right there, so around shin level for me. And as you can see, they're really easy to adjust, which is one of the really cool things about functional trainers. They let you do a whole lot of different movements. Now, in addition to the two main pulleys, which are on these freely swiveling trolleys here, so to say, I like that because in my Vultra, while it's easy to adjust, has lots of resistance, you actually don't get these free swinging trolleys. You have an adapter mount that you can use, however, they're not really that free swinging. So this can be a pro depending on how you look at it. My Prime Fitness unit does have it, but again, limited to just singular unit there. In addition to these two though, you get two above. So if you're doing any kind of specific pull down work, you could actually use these two pulleys right above you. Again, each one is tied to its particular weight stack. And then right behind me as well, you have two bottom pulleys, which are nice because they're closer together. So again, as are the top ones, these are close together, these are close together. These ones, again, about 55 inches wide. A real interesting thing with the lower pulleys down here is there's actually a handle that you can pull, which you will see in B-roll. And there are different adjustment positions depending on what you're looking to do. So that way you can actually change the angle of these close pulleys as well, doing things like rows or actually using the bench that you can purchase separately with this to do things like leg curls, leg extension, and even preacher curls. Yes, there's a preacher curl attachment for this. So a lot of different versatility in here that I like. It's not just your standard functional trainer. Now that being said, as I already mentioned, this is their top of the line model. If some of these things aren't as interesting to you as they are to me, you could save some money by going with one of the other models which don't have all of the bells and whistles necessarily. Other things that I like about this rack right off the bat, it has integrated storage, which I'm a huge fan of. I don't like a messy gym. I like to get stuff up off the floor. This has some built-in hooks. In fact, each one has about, 8 hooks or so, maybe 7 if I can count correctly, 7 hooks on this side, 7 hooks on this side. It has hooks up here for different barbells that come with it. So you get a straight bar. You also get like an easy curl type bar, which you can hook up to the trolleys as well. I mentioned the Smith machine bar as well. It does have hooks up here to keep this up and out of the way when not in use. So again, I like that because that way you can load up on a bunch of attachments and not have them in the way. The nice thing about this is it comes with a lot of attachments. I've already mentioned these 2 bars up here, the Smith machine. You've seen these D-ring cables. It actually comes with a total of 6 of these. So if you wanted to, you could actually have them in all of the pulley positions already mounted, so that way you don't have to switch between them. I choose to just keep a single pair on just because, again, I don't like necessarily clutter, and it's really simple to move these if need be. It also comes with a rope attachment. So for doing things like tricep press downs, face pulls, you can do some rope bicep curls with these as well. Whatever your heart desires, it comes with that for you. It also does come with a belt for doing certain things like belt squats, which I will show you that as well. And then also another attachment that you can use for a variety of things, which has Velcro. So if you want to put this on a single leg or whatever you choose to get creative with, you can come up with a lot of other opportunities. So I like, again, the storage aspect of it and the fact that it comes with a lot of attachments as part of the price itself. Other things that are interesting to me when I first got it is if you take a look, it does have a pull-up bar up top. It's an angled pull-up bar, so depending on how you want to do your pull-ups, you have a lot of different options. It is knurled. I will say the knurling on this is very light, but again, for a pull-up bar, you're probably not looking for something that's going to tear your hands up. And interestingly enough, it actually comes with 2 rock climbing attachments if you really want to work on that grip strength and do some pull-ups. Now, one of the things I will call out, again, me being a little bit taller, but even if you're not my height, this is not an extremely tall unit. So I measure it about 83 inches to its highest point. So the good news there is that it's going to fit in a variety of places in your home. The bad news is no matter how tall or short you may be, you're probably going to have to bend your knees a little bit when doing things like pull-ups, whether it be on the pull-up bar or on these rock climbing attachments. Fair trade-off because oftentimes, even with most power racks, again, if you're limited by overhead space in your home, your basement, your garage, wherever the case may be, where this is going to be living, you're probably going to have to limit the height of your power rack, which in turn would limit the height of your pull-up bar anyway. So that is one thing on here. Now, coming back in and talking more about this actual unit as itself, other things that are included are some other storage options. So some trays. I don't have much in here right now because, again, I have a fully kitted out gym. I have put this on what I would consider the kettlebell shelf setting. So these are just kind of flat shelves to put a kettlebell. They're actually dual purpose shelves. So if you want, when you're installing these, you could flip these upside down and they have ways to store dumbbells. I have a full dumbbell storage rack already. Doesn't really serve a purpose for me, but if you're the type of person who is getting this for their gym, like literally this will be your gym, and it very well could be based on all the things you could do with it, you might want to have a couple of pairs of dumbbells that you just throw in here. They're probably not going to be up to 120 pounds like some of the ones I have. They'll probably be somewhere between 5 to 50 pounds. So you could just set, 6 different pairs of dumbbells in here. And again, have a very well functioning gym for your own needs. You can also set these shelves at an angle if you'd like. Me being the fact that they're set for the kettlebell setting doesn't really make sense, but for a dumbbell setting, that's probably more ideal. It would make getting those dumbbells out even easier. You can also see some other things in here. There are built-in handles. So when you're doing certain movements down here with the low pulley, whether that be rowing movements, pulling movements, lower body movements, like some of the belt squat stuff, you can hold onto these handles and brace yourself, which I really like and I find that I use, because when I typically do those on my other pieces of equipment, I find I'm bracing against the power rack or something else of that nature. Having built-in handles here are really nice. You also have a built-in tablet holder, which can also fit your phone. But one of CENTR's selling points is not only do they do equipment, they have an app which institutes all different things from training and coaching and nutrition. So you could put that here, and if you're training and watch a show or take notes or reference your program or just need a spot to store stuff, this is a great spot. On the other side of this, you have an extremely large cup holder. This could fit like a 64-ounce Big Gulp if you wanted, or whatever you're into. Really large pocket here. You could throw whatever you want. It's definitely going to fit any drink outside of maybe a gallon jug that you could throw in here. So again, some really nice features on here, a lot of nice add-ons that make this potentially a really great all-in-one gym. I should also mention it does come on with some adder weights. So it comes with 2 of these, 1 for each stack. These are 5 pounds each. So again, you can get a little bit more weight on those stacks when needed. Now, let's talk about the actual use of the functional trainer, which I think this is the main selling point of this unit. Overall, I think it's really solid. The pulleys move really smooth. If I were to take one of my luggage scales to kind of see what resistance I'm getting, if I leverage it based off of this and the 2-to-1 ratio, I see it's pretty on point, which is something I like to see. In some cases, you see some fluctuation with weights, and this test isn't 100% foolproof. Obviously, there's some room for error in there, but it is close to what it advertises as, which tells me that it's pretty on point, which again is nice to see. The actual use of this, like I mentioned, is great. You can go anywhere from bottom stack, top of the stack, and do all sorts of movements from pressing to pulling to push downs, whatever. You think of it and you do it with a cable, you can do it on this machine. So as far as the functional trainer goes, I think this is great. I like the fact, again, that it has a lot of these other things integrated into it, from storage to free weights. So in theory, this could really be a total gym for a lot of people. Now, again, the thing that really sold me on this or got my interest was the Smith bar. So let me go ahead and set that up. All you need to do is you can adjust these cable columns. I'm going to put them down about halfway for now, just for the sake of being able to explain. So I'm putting this on the 28th setting. Again, this goes from 1 to 40. The Smith machine bar typically just lives up here. It has 2 little hooks. Previous versions had like a pop pin and whatnot. This one's very simple, just 2 hooks, you move out. You don't actually have to brace it or hold it, because when the Smith machine is not loaded, which I'll show you how to do in just a second, it just goes up by itself. So if I pull it down and let it go, it goes up and out of the way. These more just lock it in place, and there's appropriate stickers telling you exactly what it does. So if you actually want to load it, what you're going to do is you're going to bring it down. It has these catches like you would find on a lot of other Smith machines. You rotate it down, and on the top of the adjuster for the cable trolleys, there's these metal locks, and it locks in place. So now it is loaded with whatever is going to be loaded on the cable column after one quick change. So let me come out over here, and all you need to do is come over, and again, I'll show you B-roll appropriately. There is a bottom cable pulley here, which is not typically in use in terms of just a free swinging cable. It is hooked up to the trolley. So when you're pulling this trolley, this helps integrate the weight. There's a little tab where you can just lift and slide over to the Smith machine. And again, I'll do that on this side. I'm lifting, sliding over, and I've now loaded the Smith bar. So in order to make sure that this works appropriately, I'm gonna come here and make sure that I have the same weight on either stack. This one I have much heavier. You go ahead and put that in, and I'm good on the same side. Now, in order to engage the Smith machine, all you do is you twist it out like that, and this bar is now loaded. You can tell because it's no longer rising by itself. It has attached to the cable pulleys appropriately, and if I were to lift the bar at this point, it's going to engage the cable stacks as well. Now, as is currently set up, this is still going to be a 2-to-1 ratio. All right, so if you have 165-pound stacks, double that, and then half it, that's basically what you're going to have loaded on here. Now, I know what you might be thinking for a Smith machine movement, maybe I want more weight, and you can do that. The nice thing about this particular unit, as I lock this back into place, is you can actually make this a true 1-to-1 ratio, and the way you would do that is by simply taking these pulleys, which are typically used for the functional trainer, and you can actually lift these up. Let me take off these D-ring handles just so you can get a better view. You can lift these up and load them right onto here. And by doing this, what you're doing is you're taking this from a 2-to-1 setup to a true 1-to-1 setup. Pretty simple, right? Easy enough. So coming back under the bar, unlocking the system, and now when I lift the bar, the same cable stacks are gonna move. It's not gonna look any different, but it's definitely heavier to lift them up and down. So very nice, the fact that you can make this go heavier. To be honest, I wish there was a way to basically make the pulleys a true 1-to-1 ratio as well, because that would dramatically increase the versatility of this unit. But again, it is what it is. I think for the target demographic, that's going to be enough weight, maxing out around 360 pounds for the majority of people who would end up using this. So let's go ahead and take these off and make it back to a 1-by-1. And as you can see here, it's not as easy as a process for me. I have not found out a smooth way to do this yet. So trying to pull this off, make this work, all on camera. I think this is something that could be improved from the user end of getting them off, but it is now back to a 2-to-1 ratio. So in theory, the Smith machine is pretty cool, right? 2-to-1 or 1-to-1, and being able to do a lot of movements on a Smith machine that's already built into your functional trainer, in theory sounds great. In reality, I think there's a lot of room for improvement here. In fact, a little disappointed with the performance of this. And the reason being is for someone like me who likes to use big compound movements with a barbell and free weights and is used to using a Smith machine in a commercial gym, I'm used to being able to rack and unrack the bar at any point of the range of motion. In this case with the FT2 Pro, it doesn't seem to be the case. You can only really lock it at wherever the trolleys are. So in the case if you're doing a squat, ideally this is where you would get under the bar to do a squat, right? Under the bar, lift the bar up, or up. And now when I go to squat, I'm stuck where the trolleys are. So the way around that would be either start with the trolleys a lot lower, which we can do as I do this in real time. Let's say I want to start there at the bottom of a squat. I now have to get in here, wedge myself under where I would normally be at the bottom, get my feet set, and from here, I can do a full range of motion squat. But the problem is when you're going heavier for this, again, even at the full 1-to-1 ratio of about 360 pounds, you have to be able to wedge yourself under, which isn't very comfortable. And let's say you fail the weight, which might be happening if you're going to failure. Again, the only point where you can re-rack it, no point in here, because there's nothing for this barbell to catch on, you're going to have to go all the way down. So not really a great scenario. Now, One of the things that I found as a somewhat of a workaround is that if you have the bar in a higher position, you have the bar locked in place, what you can do is get into position for squat, set your feet, and instead of rotating this bar out to unlock it, what you do is you rotate it in, so towards the back of the rack. And what that's going to do, it's going to pull up on these safety bars, which means that when I move the bar, the safeties are going to move with me. So I'm actively rotating this now in my hands, because if I stop, it's just going to lock. So actively rotating it, come down in a squat position. From here, can let it set, and then I can unlock it and go back to squatting. But again, it's just not ideal. Ideally, there would be a scenario where you can unlock at the top and then continue your range of motion and lock at another point in time. Currently, that's not possible. Or at least it's not explained to me in the instructions or through CENTR. So in theory, the Smith machine sounds pretty cool. In reality, not the case. So that's an example for a squat. For a bench, it's the same thing. You would have to set the safeties at a starting point really low at your chest because you want that full range of motion. So you're either going to have to wiggle under the bar, and chances are you're going to have to set it a little bit higher than you would want ideally, just to allow yourself enough room to get under the bar, do your work, and then figure out a way to wiggle out. You could, of course, also use the trick I just showed you, but in that instance too, it's going to make it very difficult to get out from under the bar. Or if you fail, you could be at a point in time where you're literally like wedged under the bar. Even though the safeties are there, there might not be enough room to kind of squeeze out, if you will. So in theory, this thing sounded really good. Execution-wise, I don't think it's there just yet. Now, one of the things that I did as a bit of research, as I have not owned any of these functional trainers in the past of this style from CENTR or Inspire, is I watched some of the reviews out there on some of their other existing equipment. This is not the first Smith machine they've put into a functional trainer. I really liked some of the stuff that Joe Gray did on his channel regarding his FT2. I would highly recommend that. I'll try to link that in the description box if I'm able to. He had some of the same call outs, and a lot of the other people who have done reviews on equipment with this built-in Smith machine have had some of the same feedback where things just don't seem to work as well as they'd like. I would have really hoped that they would have taken that criticism and tried to improve this some in terms of the usability. They have not. But again, I think for a lot of the audiences out there, that's probably okay. Now, personally, my wife had a hard time figuring this out, and when I showed her how it worked, she was kind of let down as well because, again, she was really looking forward to using the Smith machine portion on here. And as is right now, she's still going through some growing pains. Now, one of the things I will say is talking with other people who have owned the Smith machine and had it for a while, they say you adapt over time. You kind of figure out what works well and what doesn't, and using it for its intended purposes will get easier in the long run. And some movements are just not great on it. So again, a little bit of a letdown, but it is what it is in that case. Another thing I wanted to call out, which I haven't talked about yet, speaking about, I don't think the use is what it should be, is it also comes with this foot plate. The foot plate just simply inserts down here towards the bottom. There's little hooks which go right in. And the thought process here is you can use these foot plates and the bottom pulleys to use the belt attachment and basically do belt squats. What I found personally does not work well. The reason being is the width of the pulleys and the belt, especially around someone's hips, it stays pretty wide. Ideally on a belt squat, you have it much more narrow and going right down between your legs. Does not seem to be the case this way. And also just the size of the foot plate, the angle of them, and even though this is adjustable down here towards the bottom, I don't find like you can get in a good spot to actually emulate a squat. So if I do any kind of lower body belt squat type movements on here, what I found to be more effective is setting up the belt and then just taking a very wide stance here, holding the handles and getting close and not using the foot plate whatsoever. But again, depending on you, depending on your mobility and what you're trying to do, you might find the foot plate beneficial to yourself. I have not found the point of that being true for me. The nice thing I will say though is loading. Initially, I thought loading a belt squat might be a little bit difficult here, and it's not the easiest or smoothest because again, like the Smith, you have to load it at the lowest point of range of motion. But at least with the integrated handle down here where you can adjust the pulleys, you could adjust it up and load it, and then using force and depending on your strength, lower it back down. But of course, that might limit how heavy you're able to go on these in that particular movement. And again, you're gonna get a 2-to-1 ratio down here towards the bottom. So I don't know if this foot plate is actually really that beneficial. Now, I've talked a little bit about the bench. I mentioned it. There's a bench portion that you can buy separately. It is an add-on. It is quite an expensive add-on. I might do a separate video on that, but my general thoughts on it, I'll just throw it in this video in case you're considering it, is like this actual functional trainer Smith machine. It has a lot of promise, but I think there's some room for improvement. Just the ergonomics of it, at least for someone my size, I don't find like the leg extensions and leg curls work out tremendously well. I do know, as I mentioned already, Joe Gray had some real good success doing leg extensions and some curls on his. But for me personally, I just find like there's something missing, especially in my scenario where I have other alternatives. So for someone like me who's a dedicated powerlifter, has a lot of other equipment, the most use I will get out of this is the functional trainer portion, which I think is really good. Like I said, it's smooth, a lot of adjustability, a lot of different movements you can do on it. That part is good. The bad on it for me is the Smith machine option and the belt squat stuff. Just seems more gimmicky and not as thoroughly planned out in execution. So who is this for? I would say this unit at this price is for someone who is really looking to have an all-in-one kind of gym in one simple piece of equipment, right? It came in a huge pallet, big boxes. I put it together predominantly by myself. The only help I needed was carrying the sides down, which are not loaded, but they're just really big and kind of bulky, and getting them down in here in the basement by myself without banging them up probably wasn't going to be easy. So I had my wife help me on that. And then my wife helped me just put the screws in while I held up this center cross beam with the pull-up bars and the rock grip attachment. Otherwise, I put the entire unit together by myself. It did take a couple of hours, but the install wasn't tremendously difficult. What was hard about it was my unit did not have instructions in the box. I was sent them electronically eventually, which I'm thankful for, but is also missing, along with the instructions, the actual stack stickers. So I don't have any stickers on them currently. They told me that they will be sending those to me. And I know some of the other people that will be doing reviews on this also did not receive instructions on theirs. And the instructions in general were on the poorer side of some of the things that I've seen, right? This is a pretty complex unit of routing cables, most of which were done for you, but certain steps where I found were left off, and it comes with a lot of pieces and a lot of boxes, none of which are really labeled appropriately. So you basically have to dig through all the boxes, get everything out so you can see everything, and it just adds to the time that it takes to put this together. But again, if you're looking for something that's all encompassing, and this is going to be the only piece of gym equipment you have, you could really get a full body training session on here, throw some kettlebells or dumbbells in, and be overly really happy. What you might not be happy about though is the price, because to get all that versatility is quite expensive. The list price on this is $5,999. As I mentioned, I think if you use my link below, you get $600 off. I do believe also that's typically a sales price you'll see for this unit. You get 3 months of CENTR, the app, for free. So again, that's training, nutrition, coaching, that kind of stuff. And if you're really into that and want that, that could be an added benefit for you. But if you're just looking to get like the functional trainer aspect, which again, I think is the best portion of this machine, you might also want to consider some of their lower priced options that kind of do away with the Smith machine and the rock climbing grips and the adjustable cable column or the adjustable pulley on the bottom, however, as you can get a lot of the same bang for a lot less of your buck. Either way, let me know what you think in the comment section below. In the meantime, as always, thanks for watching and stay big.